MovieOn.org has warned that last Friday's disrupted Donald Trump rally is only the beginning of its campaign against First Amendment rights disguised as an anti-Trump movement. The Washington Times reports that the left-wing organization, which has endorsed Bernie Sanders for president, is raising funds so that it can continue to disrupt Trump's campaign rallies. Mr. Trump and the Republican leaders who support him and his hate-filled rhetoric should be on notice after tonight's events, MovieOn.org's webpage states in reference to Friday's protests. To all of those who took to the streets of Chicago, we say thank you for standing up and saying enough is enough. To Donald Trump and the GOP, we say, welcome to the general election. Friday's protesters included members of MovieOn.org, Black Lives Matter, and even former Weather Underground domestic terrorist Bill Ayers, responsible for bombing New York City Police headquarters in 1970. MovieOn.org, funded by billionaire globalist George Soros, is touting as a success the protests against Donald Trump in Chicago that forced the Republican frontrunner to cancel the rally set to take place there. Last night, without consulting local police, Donald Trump abruptly canceled a rally in Chicago in the face of massive and overwhelmingly peaceful student-led protests, MovieOn.org wrote in an email Saturday to members. But regardless of claims by MovieOn.org that Friday's protests were overwhelmingly peaceful, a Chicago police officer tells a very different story, Breitbart News reports, indicating that the protests were more violent and destructive than the media has reported. It seems their media aren't broadcasting footage of the debris being thrown across Harrison by Sanders, Hillary supporters and Trump fans, the officer wrote shortly after the cancelled Trump event. That officer, who anonymously posted on the Second City Cop blog, states that the protesters broke windows of vehicles with Trump bumper stickers on them. The officer posted a second, lengthier post wherein he heavily criticized the lack of coordination and planning in handling the protests. He also wrote that the decision to empty the pavilion which hosted Trump's supporters was a bad one as it placed thousands of people as targets, resulting in confrontations between the protesters and the supporters. The officer bemoaned the failure to maintain order as a result of failed planning. Who gave up the expressway? Who let them block ambulances? Why did they not assemble citywide incident teams as soon as they knew the rally was cancelled? TAC teams? We even heard mass arrest kits weren't available and only one transport wagon on scene in case arrests were made. Whoever drew up this order failed miserably. Whatever the intelligence section was doing wasn't nearly enough. The on-scene incident commander failed to anticipate even the best-case scenario, and every other appointee showed how incompetent they really were by not ordering up more reinforcements and more units on standby. Photos captured at the scene reveal that at least one police officer was injured during the protests. According to the officer's post, there were in fact 2 policemen that needed numerous stitches to close up wounds. Yet it seems the media is standing by the claims made by MovieOn.org that the protests were largely peaceful. Meanwhile, MovieOn.org's email to its supporters indicates Friday was only the beginning of its rampage against Trump and his supporters' First Amendment rights and requested that members each donate $3 to fund the effort. So here's the plan. We'll support MovieOn.org members to call out and non-violently protest Trump's racist, bigoted, misogynistic, xenophobic, and violent behavior, and show the world that America rejects Trump's hate, the email read. And to keep it going, we're counting on you to donate whatever you can to cover the costs of everything involved, the organizers, signs, online recruitment ads, training, and more. And despite MovieOn.org's use of violence and its flagrant violations of free speech, the organization claims its campaign against Trump is a result of Trump's bullying, hate baiting, and incitements to violence. Irony, or hypocrisy? And still, the email accuses Trump's supporters of intimidation. We're being flooded with aggressive emails and social media posts from Trump supporters. Some of them are threatening. We refuse to be intimidated by Donald Trump, Fox News, or anyone else. Protesters have made no effort to hide the fact that their primary goal was and is to stifle free speech. My focus was set on shutting it down, said Jedediah Brown, a supporter of Senator Bernie Sanders, who had to be dragged from the stage by security officials after destroying a Trump poster. Trump's message: Trump's campaign is not welcome in Chicago, he added. Furthermore, the efforts by MovieOn.org have once again underscored the clear media bias against Republican candidates, as there have been no calls by the mainstream media for Bernie Sanders to denounce MovieOn.org for its anti-First Amendment actions. In fact, Sanders accused Trump of lying because Trump said that it was Clinton and Sanders people who disrupted my rally, even as many of the protesters held Sanders signs and chanted slogans in support of Sanders. Sanders then went on to make a statement seemingly in support of the protesters. Obviously, while I appreciate that we had supporters at Trump's rally in Chicago, our campaign did not organize the protests, Sanders said. There was no denouncement of the violence at the rally nor of the organization's effective shutdown of free speech. Yet Trump was criticized for failing to repudiate the Ku Klux Klan quickly enough after one of its former members voiced his support for the presidential candidate, even though Trump never had exchanged so much as a single word with the man. The double standard is